Hudson County View got the opportunity to sit down with Friends of Loews director Colin Egan to discuss proposed changes to the future management of the landmark Loews Jersey Theater. We began the conversation with a brief history of the relationship between the theater and nonprofit group which manages it.
Sure. Friends of the Loews began in 1987 as a grassroots group of people who were opposing what was then the official city policy that the theater should be torn down to benefit redevelopment in Journal Square. And we said that was crazy, and we pointed to other cities that had saved theaters and made them arts centers. It took to 1993, but we finally got the city to understand us and to actually change its mind. It bought the theater for all $325,000, supposedly to make it an arts center, but it really hadn't committed to the idea enough to want to commit real funding for that. And so Friends of the Loews stepped in. We stopped being just advocates and we started doing. We helped write a grant that got some money to pay for basic stabilization, but there wasn't enough money to get the theater open and functioning again at all. And that's when we jumped in and rolled up our sleeves and actually created a volunteer construction company. And we did everything you could think of in here to get the place open, minimally at least, and operating again. And we achieved that by 2001. We started doing programming to hopefully get the city to understand the building needed even more help and support. And by 2004, L. Harvey Smith, who was acting mayor, actually did listen, and he gave Friends of the Loews a 15-year lease of the theater, along with commitments to provide funding for some more very basic repairs, fire code, building code, to make the theater comply with the city's own, I should say, building codes, and that would allow us to bring bigger shows in. And he also promised funding to help us do independent arts management planning. The only problem is the city has never provided any of that funding.
I followed up by asking Egan about what exactly Mayor Fulop's proposal would mean for the future of the Loews Jersey Theater.
What his plan would be to give this theater to AEG, which is one of the nation's, if not the world's, largest commercial promoters, promoting operations, and let them run the place with Mana Contemporary, which is a great but very high-end arts, fine arts gallery, and then some involvement with NJCU. But the driving force in all of this is AEG is commercial operator, and that means the Loews goes from being an arts center to basically a commercial concert venue. The difference, if I can make the analogy, is between BAM in New York and the Beacon Theater, or if you will, between public television and commercial television. It's a whole different mission and operation.
When asked, Egan didn't seem to think making the Loews a commercial-operated venue would add more programming or necessarily revive the Journal Square area.
One of the things that often happens in the industry with the commercial theater operators, like AEG, like Live Nation, some others, they're promoters. They like to control venues to keep their competition out. It doesn't necessarily mean they program them that frequently. So it's a very good question how much programming will ultimately go on here at the Loews, even if it's run by a commercial promoter. But to the question of what aids the revitalization of the square, the shows that AEG can bring in should be part of that. And we've always said they would be here at the Loews once, with the city's supposed help, the theater can support that. But they're not the only thing. And if you want to understand what I'm talking about, look at Cleveland, look at Columbus, Ohio, look at Atlanta, Georgia, even look at Schenectady, New York, arguably Newark, New Jersey. They've built revitalization of urban areas around the operation of nonprofit art centers. And the reason is nonprofit art centers bring a much greater diversity of programming, of admission pricing, and therefore of people to an area.
He also spoke about the physical condition of the building and lack of financial support the city has provided to Friends of Loews.
The city, which owns the building, is supposed to fix the fire escapes. They're also supposed to put in sprinklers, smoke detectors, and standpipes, the hydrants that are inside the building. None of that's been fixed. So AEG and Live Nation can't use this building right now. I'd make the point that before AEG can put on those kind of commercial shows here, they expect to get up to $40 million in mostly public sourced funds to make renovations. It's a little weird then for the mayor to turn around and look to Friends of the Loews, which never got the much less amount of money the city was supposed to come forward with, and for him to then say, well, how come you aren't putting on other shows? You can't be acknowledging AEG needs that kind of money, and on one hand, and on the same token, complaining that we're not doing enough with no help at all.
Finally, Egan made the case why Friends of Loews should continue as the operator of the theater.
The only reason this building is operating now is because volunteers have given hundreds of thousands of hours and several $1 million worth of value to working it. Again, that's not, no one of them gets anything in return. They do it because they believe in it. And I would suggest that that's the sort of drive that you need to ensure that an operation succeeds. Oftentimes what you find out when in commercially operated venues, it's not working out, so the commercial operator takes off and the place is dark and has a problem. Also, if you look at the kind of programming we've done in microcosm, because again, the building can't do that much, we've done everything from the commercial major concerts down to the small community arts, down to community public service events. That's what we're committed to, and I think that's the strongest case I can make for why the Loews should stay a nonprofit art center.
I'm Michael Shuren with Hudson County View, the eye of the community.